Hello and welcome to another episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast presented by Coors Light. And Joe Chatz alongside Alex Campbell here. It's been a couple weeks since we've had a show, and it's been a couple of weeks in which the Fire have played some games, and they have got 1 point out of their 2 road games, which obviously that could be worse, but given the way the most recent game went, I'm not sure fans could be feeling really much lower this early in the season. Normally, I feel like the kind of woe we saw set in on Sunday is normally reserved for the dog days of summer, and instead, it is here on the first week of April. So we're going to get into those games. We're going to talk about, there's been discussions about where do you put blame this early in the season. There's plenty to go around, and I think every different component of the organization and the team probably shares in it some. And then we're going to talk about the Open Cup because Chicago Fire 2, or as I think we're going to call them in this episode, Chicago Fire 1.5, take on Forward Madison on Wednesday night. That's at SeatGeek, and a chance for the winner of that game to finally maybe face a USL championship or an actual MLS team in a couple weeks' time. Joe, how are you? Fire results aside.
I'm great. A dreary day in Chicago. It's perfect. Loving sports. At least we have the Red Stars. That's all we got right now.
Yeah, the second place in the NWSL, Chicago Red Stars, only behind the first place Kansas City Current. Those are the 2 teams who finished bottom of the NWSL last year. So great change is possible, but the Fire are going to have a lot of work to do if they are going to get there. Should also say, for those not watching on YouTube, I am wearing a shirt that has Jepson's Malort on the front of it. Shout out to Lakeview FC, a local Sunday League team, for lack of a better phrase, and partnering with the great folks at Olive & York to produce this kit. And it's appropriate for today because after these 2 games, I'm sure Fire fans in general could have used a drink. Chicago Fire 1, New England Revolution 1. This was a mess of a game. It is just pouring in Foxborough the entire time. No one went to this game, and you can't blame them, because at this point, New England were 0-4 on the season, just 4 straight-up losses, and the weather was just beyond terrible. So nobody's at this game, and they didn't miss a whole lot. Fire lineup, no Shaq. He's in Switzerland. No Brady. He's with the under-23s. So Fabian Herbers and Spencer Ritchie start. Jonathan Dean at left back, a personal passion project of Joe's. When you saw this, what were your thoughts? I mean, Fabi starting wasn't surprising to me, but I was kind of hoping we'd see Chris Mueller out there, just something more attacking, given that the Fabi Acosta pivot seemed to be functional.
It was, and I think we were both watching this in the SeatGeek parking lot, if I recall correctly, before a Red Stars game. So really, just everyone was excited for it ahead of time. But yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know if Chris Mueller is going to get the opportunity, but
somebody more attacking.
Yeah, it was a non-aggressive lineup against the worst team in the league, and I don't care if you're on the road in bad weather. 15,000 were reported. Not a chance.
I can believe 15,000 bought tickets to this game, but I can also then believe that half of them were like, do I want to drive to Foxborough in the pouring rain on this dreary, cold Saturday? No, I don't. Shout out to Charlie the Bacon guy in the chat. Malort bacon for all. I would try Malort bacon. I'm not opposed to that idea. Could you use some warm food, I'm sure, on the sidelines at this New England Fire game. It was real bad.
It was horrible. It really wasn't the type of game you want to watch, and in the fact that you only come away with it with 1 point is just infuriating.
Also, Joe and I were watching this from our cars in the SeatGeek Stadium parking lot, so
it wasn't great.
Fabi was very much the 10, which I guess isn't surprising, but so just for the sake of noting it, Guti stayed basically where he's been playing, still drifting in. Game starts sloppily, but then in the 20th minute, Hugo Kuipers scores his 2nd goal in as many games. Sahlquist does well along the far sideline, wins the ball back from, I believe, Nacho Heel. The Fire work it upfield. Marin Haile Selassie has a great through ball to Fabian Herbers, squares it. Kuipers just slam dunks this ball in the back of the net. And this, Joe, is why you signed Hugo Kuipers. And Fire fans online said plenty of this, that those are the sorts of chances we have seen missed. And the thing that you are paying for with Hugo Kuipers is, more often than not, those chances are going to be goals. And Fox in the box, whatever you want to call it, good setup from Fabi, and then just a slam dunk of a finish.
Exactly, and it's the finish that you would have wanted after he barely missed in Columbus. You needed to see him build on some of these performances, and he finally has, because it takes a striker to get these opportunities. We saw it last year with the combination of Shabilko and Kai Kamara. By the end of the year, they just couldn't deal with these opportunities in a productive, efficient manner. So if you're going to give Hugo Kuipers the opportunity once or twice a game, it seems like he can at least produce something that's going to terrify a defense.
Yeah, we'll talk about this more later. It's not about the quality of Kuipers' involvements have been very good. The quantity of them has left a little bit to be desired. New England fires a warning shot in the 26th when center back Henry Kessler volleys over from like inside the 6-yard box in a corner. Again, how are the Fires still this bad at defending corner kicks that a center back is getting a free volley at grass level? Nothing happens for a bit, and then, speaking of things Fire fans have seen before, 44th minute, Brian Gutierrez gets a yellow card for simulation. There's two choices here. Either he's got to get better at this, and there are some phenomenal acting schools in this city that can help him out with that, or anybody's got to get in his ear, somebody in a position of authority, and say, hey, you've got to just, you shouldn't probably be doing it anyway, but if it's not going to be getting us penalties, you really just got to cut it out, because this is a 4 or 5 times a season thing now, where Guti, instead of carrying out with a play, tries to buy a foul, gets himself a yellow card for diving. It's just unproductive.
It is unproductive, and at this point, it's a matter of, what do you prefer, the chaos or the slightest chance that a ref's going to blow the whistle and that you're going to get it to stand with VAR, which at this point, good luck.
Shout out Santi Jimenez of the Mexican national team, who learned that the very hard way last week.
Yeah. But it's just, with Brian, there's a need he's adjusting to a bigger frame, obviously, but at a certain point, you got to tell him what he really needs to do. And if that is getting to the byline, he really doesn't get to the end line much these days.
He's not a get to the end line on his left foot and cross it guy. In that case, either try to cut on your right and fire, or if it's not there, at least hold possession. Because as we've talked about, we've seen from Kuipers, you've got a guy like him, and we've seen Fabian Herbers crashing the box this season. There are other guys out there who you can get some help from, who might be in a better position to score. So, that happens, and you're thinking, okay, well, if they go in at half 1-0, this is a messy game, whatever. Then the next few minutes get very weird. Second minute of first half stoppage time, Alan Aragoni gets a yellow for time wasting on a throw-in, and with that we say, goodbye, replacement refs, you will not be missed.
No. Did you laugh? I laughed really hard when that happened.
That was very much, I think Aragoni is speaking for all 22 players on the field were like, it's raining, it's cold, just let us go inside, blow the damn whistle. There's 20 seconds left on the clock to the minimum of 3 minutes. No one wants to be here. Well, then, off the ensuing throw-in, New England score the equalizer. Nacho heel taps home after Spencer Ritchie spills what should be an easy Carles Heel shot that's straight at him. Yes, it is wet outside. Yes, being a goalkeeper in professional soccer is difficult. But at this level, if a ball is hit straight at your sternum, you need to be catching that or corralling it, punching it away. It needs to go literally anywhere else but 5 feet back in front of you. Easy tap in for Nacho Heel, and just a gut punch to the Fire, who look to have slopped their way to a halftime lead.
Yeah, and the XG, the expected goals right before then were heavily in the Fire's favor, but then once you give away that chance that's so high percentage, it all swung back in New England's favor. And yeah, unfortunate is the way to put it kindly. It just can't happen, and when you're playing against the worst team in the league, it really can't happen.
Yeah, this is the thing, we'll talk about this more in a bit, is when we looked at the Fire's early season schedule, we said, okay, the opponents on this look difficult. The flip side of that is a lot of these teams, like New England, are dealing with continental competition and fixture congestion. Some teams like Columbus, you haven't even noticed. They've still been a juggernaut in MLS and look great, don't look tired at all. New England has dropped their first 4 in the league, largely because of this, because, they're tired, they're flying a lot, they're struggling even more than the Fire to create chances, to your XG point. It's kind of, for a lot of this season so far, Carles Hill has been very Xherdan Shaqiri-esque of, you've got a real talented guy out there, but he doesn't seem to be getting the ball very much, and when he has it, he's not doing a whole lot with it. And, between guys like Vironi and Shankala, he's got options. So I expect New England to get better as the season goes on, now that Champions League is no longer something. that they are worried about. But yeah, this is the kind of game where if you're the Fire, you can't afford this kind of mistake. Second half begins, and it's 20 more minutes of slop. There's really only one chance for either team in the entire second half. That comes in the 67th minute, where Yurios Koutsias does very well to close down the New England goalkeeper Edwards Jr. and stops a pass. But shoot the damn ball. You've just taken it away from the keeper. You're 20 yards from goal. The net is empty. Do not dribble there. Just don't. Even if it's not a great situation, you got an open net for a split second. Shoot the damn ball.
Yeah, the striker mentality was fleeting there for Koutsias. And I asked Frank about it, Frank Klopas about it in midweek. He's like, yeah, no, he's got to do better. Credit to the goalie for a point of it. But at a certain moment, you need to be able to take that extra step. And you got to be able, it wasn't that much of a bend around the keeper. And on turf, you don't have to get it in the air. It's going to skip into the net. So it's one of those that was the one that I circled, starred, everything with. This is why the Fire should have won this game.
Yes, I mean, it ends up being a draw in the end. The other thing you could do there, just tap it towards goal. Hugo Kuipers is 10 yards to his left. And if you just kind of roll the ball over there, Kuipers, you're going to favor over a center back to get there first and bury it. One quick side note before we move on from this game. Fire Emeritus, Matt Polster should have been sent off in this game for his challenges on Fabian Herbers alone. He had 3 yellow card worthy challenges just on Herbers. Only one of them gets a yellow card in this game. Again, refs, goodbye. The refs totally lose control in stoppage time of this game. It's a mess. You know you've screwed up when everyone's unhappy, like when both sets of players are just yelling at the referees, like in unison. Not a good look. Full time, 1-1. Meh.
No, the 2 shots on goal were the Koutsias chance and the goal. That's it. It doesn't make sense when you have these guys, especially in the pivot. Say what you will about Gaston Jimenez. He's got a nice left boot if you get him an opportunity within 30 yards of goal. He can create something. That's part of why you brought Kellen Acosta here. Give those guys opportunities in possession, but especially against New England, nobody was moving. Once they got the ball in the attacking third, it was the most solitary soccer, and it carried over to Atlanta by all means, but the New England result is one at the end of the year you will be kicking yourselves about.
Yeah, it's 2 points dropped.
Oh, easily 2 points dropped. And just the lack of opportunities alone in a sloppy environment on the road in front of no people, you got to do better.
And especially in the rain, and look how New England scores. New England scores because the ball is wet and the defense mishandles it. Rain is the only people rain is good for in a soccer field is attackers.
Yep.
So in that environment, you have to be more willing than usual when you're kind of doing the balance of what's my better percentage play here. Just knock the ball forward more, push forward a bit, because as Spencer Ritchie showed, there's a decent chance somebody's going to make a mistake. We're going to go long in segment 1 today because we're going to pack all the games into segment 1 and then get into the breakdown later. Atlanta United 3, Chicago Fire 0. There were people at this game, over 30,000 of them, because those atmospheres in Atlanta are wonderful. Even in a 70,000 seat stadium, they make it feel and sound full. If you thought the New England game was miserable to watch as a Fire fan, whoo boy! Brady and Tehran both start 2 changes that I think everybody greeted with positivity at the time when we saw the lineup. Also, Marin Haile Selassie in this game is flipped to the left, which meant Gutierrez was on the right, which, based on our prior conversation, that Guti doesn't like going to the end line and is also fairly one-footed, you can correctly deduce he did very little in this game. But the Fire do start brightly. Kuipers forces a Brad Guzan oopsie, which is kind of just standard fare for Atlanta United. At this point, eventually Haile Selassie gets there, blazes the shot over, and that's the opportunity. Even though the Kuipers goal comes later in the New England game, comes in the 20th minute, this is one of those opportunities where you're on the road, you have been gifted the chance to punch your opposition in the mouth, and the Fire don't take it.
You have to against a team like Atlanta that's one of the most talented in MLS. Between the strikers they have, the attackers they have, you're going to have to score 2 goals at least to beat them no matter what. Sorry, not sorry, especially on the road. And Marin on his left, it's his natural position, left wing. He got a good amount of space. You got to hit the target. Guzan, great keeper. He makes a couple mistakes every year, and the Fire did not take advantage, and they really needed to.
Yeah, as I always have to call him, a Homer Glen, Illinois, and Providence Catholic High School legend, Brad Guzan. 9th minute, Jonathan Dean almost gives Atlanta a goal by hooking a ball into the middle of the field to nobody for no good reason. He wasn't great versus New England. He was flat out bad in this game. You don't want to rush back Andrew Gutman, but my goodness, is he going to be an upgrade when he returns?
Yeah, having a left back, a natural left back at left back would be really helpful, or at least a left-footed player at left back.
But as Gasper has shown, he does not have the fitness, especially against an Atlanta. Can you imagine Gasper up against Saba Lojanice and how that would have gone? It would not have gone any better.
Congratulations on nailing the pronunciation.
I listened to the highlights a bunch. There's no way I could come anywhere near spelling it. Georgian as a language perplexes me, but I know how it sounds in my head, and on further references, he is just Saba. Thank you, Atlanta, for also just insisting that that's how he be called in the media guide.
Oh, yes.
Must appreciated by everybody. The Fire hang in there well for the rest of this first half. They're not holding a lot of possession, but they are frustrating these talented Atlanta attackers. 45 minutes on the clock right before halftime. Just like last game, Atlanta get on the board. Aragone's a step slow up against Saba. It looks like Aragone's done a good job to get back. The good news is he slides in and gets a toe to the cross. The bad news is the way he gets a toe to this cross results in it awkwardly looping right over Shihos, who is already lining up his positioning. It falls onto Giacomakis' foot. Brady's wrong-footed as well. Easy tapping for Giacomakis. 1-0. I think the only question you can maybe ask here is, what are Shihos and Dean looking at as Giacomakis runs between them? Now, again, maybe if Aragoni doesn't deflect this cross at all, maybe this thing is cleared at the front post by Shihos because it's low. So I think this is mostly just bad luck, but again, it's a gut punch given that the Fire were this close to accomplishing the goal of the first 45 minutes was get in at least level.
And there's the one guy, Giacomakis, that you're like, don't let him beat us. It's the Caitlin Clark thing. Don't let her beat us. The same type of thing. You don't want to let that top player do it. And mistake or not, ball deflection or not, there needs to be someone at all times. This team isn't good enough defensively to just zonally mark against some of the top players in this league. You have to have a body on a Georgios Giacomakis. Sorry, Kutsi. Got me confused. But against this Atlanta team, it just wasn't crisp, and they made them pay, and it could have been so much worse.
Yeah, I mean, no, we'll talk about that when we get to the end of the timeline here of this game. But yeah, Giacomakis with Lojanice, Almada, and Jade Silva behind him, and Bartosz Szlich, the defensive mid they signed from Poland, looks freaking awesome. Okay, so it's 1-0 Atlanta at the half. Fire come out of the halftime looking okay. Hugo Kuipers, I think, only had 3 real looks in this game, even half looks in this game. One of them here in the 63rd minute, out of absolutely nowhere, he hits the post.
Yep.
So inches away from tying the game. Guzan is totally rooted to the turf. He doesn't get a good look at it. Just get Hugo the ball and these things happen. This is why it's so frustrating we've seen so little of him, because in those limited opportunities, he shows you that he doesn't need much to think he can score or actually score.
And that came from what we wanted in New England. Kick the ball in a dangerous spot. Shaqiri just threw that towards the 18-yard box. Defender gets a poor clearance on it, falls close to Kuipers, and opportunism strikes, and he nearly scores. That's what we've been begging for from this team.
Especially now, Atlanta's turf is newer and nicer in any regard than what New England's going on. But it's football turf, first and foremost. That stuff is bouncy. And so, again, to your point with the defender making a mistake, it is the sort of service that can be unpredictable for a first touch. And so, again, yeah, Shaq just gets that ball forward. Kuipers makes something of it. Okay, that's too bad. Well, literally moments later, it's 2-0. Goal Atlanta. Fabi, this is rare, just loses a duel in midfield. Everyone's running backwards. Saba's got all the time in the world to put this cross in. Tehran completely loses Tiare, who'd been on the field for about 5 seconds. He's wide open to the far post, heads it home. 2-0. Same shit, different day. The Fire cannot stop a cross. They cannot mark a runner, and they cannot judge the flight of a soccer ball. How is this still happening to professional players with this frequency?
I don't understand it, especially when you consider that any dome should be easy for the Fire, all things considered, because you can actually play the flight of the ball naturally, unlike everywhere they train at home and where they play at home. I don't get it. It comes down to the marking thing as well. Just go for the ball and deal with the rest later. You've got some good goalkeepers.
Yeah, even if you can't, if you're Tehran in this situation, even if you lose Tiare, just look for the ball, and Carlos jumps for this, and he's just underjudged it. He just misses it. He's a foot too close to where the cross came from. Now, credit to Saba, this ball's a dime. It is perfectly, it ends up being 6 feet off the ground exactly, like 2 feet outside the back post. It's a great cross. But still, when you look at the way the Fire defend this, nothing Chris Brady can do. He gets a piece of this, but like, what was he going to do? This was just a great header. Fire almost get one back immediately after the game is really opening up here, and Fabian Herbers, he's been very good this season. This was a day to forget for him. He just totally whiffs on a great chance that's set up by ALLCITY. Jonathan Dean gets a shot off, but it's blocked. That was, it's 2, and again, the Fire had that early chance, didn't take it. Kuipers hits the post, and a goal immediately follows. Then, it's 2. You can get one back here. You can be right back in this game if Fabi scores here. And instead, again, this was really the last A quality chance the Fire got.
3 different types of chances, too. To have Fabi and Jonathan Dean in the penalty area with an opportunity to do something means you progress the ball and you were able to move players up the pitch. The first one was kind of on a counter with Brian going back to Marin ALLCITY. And then the Shaqiri to Kuipers, that's just kind of creating chaos. 3 different things that this team can do at times. And that's why it's so frustrating, because you see it happen. These aren't bad football players. It just doesn't make sense.
No, but you need more reps of those. The game ends not with a goal, but with a red card. 83rd minute, Carlos Terán gives the ball away to Thiago Almada, who is standing 2 feet in front of him, and Carlos's response to this action is to put his entire damn boot into Almada's left calf. Real easy call, straight red, Fire down to 10. We were talking about this offline, Joe. Carlos Terán is probably, in terms of just overall ability and talent, there's an argument to be made. He's the best center back on this team. But he's the least available center back on this team because he's either hurt all the time or doing stupid stuff like this.
Yeah, it stinks because he's so likable, but he makes it so hard to love him when he's playing like this. That there was just no reason, and with the schedule congestion coming up, that was a really, really bad time to get a suspension when some of your center backs, we'll talk about this, might need to play this week.
Yeah, Terán benched Sahlquist in this game. Like, that was a switch made for a reason. Carlos Terán, welcome to the United States Open Cup. 90th minute +5. Good save by Chris Brady to deny Saba after more very statuesque defending. And then moments later, in the 6th minute of added time, the cherry on top shows up. Goal Atlanta. Almada dances through 3 or 4 Fire players, hits the post with a shot, and then TRA does a nice fake. Jonathan Dean goes flying through. If you've ever seen that meme of somebody sliding and then suddenly they're going through space. Yeah, it was Jonathan Dean on that. So TRA bears it 3-0. To your point, Joe, this could have been worse. It felt like 6 or 7. And also, just for a nice little bit of salt in the wound, this game was on national television on Easter Sunday afternoon. So a whole bunch of people got to watch the Fire just get absolutely stomped.
Poor Tony Meola in the broadcast booth trying to say something nice about the Fire. They develop really good goalkeepers, but there's nothing to talk about positively after that. Credit to everybody who was on those broadcasts. There were 2 for whatever reason. But, that stunk. I was annoyed that I had to watch it, honestly, given how much basketball was on.
Yeah,
that goes on big screen, and you're like, oh, that wasn't fun, 21 shots, 7, on target conceded. Fire only have 3 shots on target. You're just like, well, okay. That was a soccer game.
Well, the Fire are in a tough spot right now. We'll take a look at their upcoming schedule because, oh boy, is this an important stretch coming here for the Fire. 4 of their next 5 games are at home. If you're watching on YouTube, you see that now. Houston this weekend, then they're at the Red Bulls the following weekend, and then 3 straight at home. Salt Lake, Atlanta, and New England again. So the Fire are going to get all 4 of their games out of the way with those 2 by Cinco de Mayo somehow. Thank you, random MLS scheduling. So I don't think it's underselling it, Joe. Basically, ignore the teams they're playing. 4 of these next 5 games are at home. The Fire just died last year by not being able to win and even get points sometimes at home. It's only April. It is early. But those four home games, this is a crucial stretch for this team if they want to stay in the chasing pack. Because if you don't get points out of these home games, you're going to find yourself right near the bottom real fast.
You're going to find yourself right near the bottom fast. You're going to find yourself irrelevant in the league that already kind of wants you to be irrelevant just based on how some of these things are marketed. And you're left without all the momentum that was built up in reviving a brand that actually mattered, which did matter this offseason. I liked the return to red stuff. It was actually something that mattered, understanding what your fan base wanted.
And some signings that were exciting. There was reason for some cautious optimism, and that flame is just a small flicker right now. And if you don't want that to be totally extinguished, they've got to show some life here in the next month. We're going to talk about the consequences of, the current state of things and what to make of it in a moment, but we have gone a long time without thanking our friends who make this show possible, and that begins with Coors Light, who are always there to help you chill. And boy, oh boy, did Fire fans, I'm sure, need to chill after these last couple of games. There's always a better way to chill, and that is with Coors Light, whether it's at a tailgate at Soldier Field ahead of a Fire game. Baseball this summer, if you're a Cubs fan, you might be enjoying a Coors Light to help you chill and enjoy the afternoon. If you're a White Sox fan, you might be drinking it to chill and feel less emotions and things, because my oh my, has that been painful already. Or maybe you're just chilling watching the NCAA tournament. Coors Light is always there to help you out. And when the mountains turn blue, Coors Light is as cold as the Rockies. It is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smoother finish. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill. Choose Coors Light, the official domestic beer partner of Chicago Fire FC. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. CHGO Fire is also brought to you by CD1 Price Cleaners, proud sponsors of CHGO, with their low prices where you can save over 30% on your dry cleaning bill if you switch to CD1 Price Cleaners. But of course, they don't just do dry cleaning. They do wash and fold laundry, blankets, comforters, tailoring, alterations. They'll clean leather. They'll clean area rugs. They'll clean your sports jerseys that you might have spilled Coors Light on. They will take it all, and every item is the same simple price. And you're not going to get upcharged. It's not unpredictable. You know what you're getting at CD1 Price Cleaners, and they can get you your order back to you the same day or even the next day. And if it's going to be a while, they'll text you when your order is ready. So visit CHGO.CD1, that is CHGO.CDONE.com. The link is in the YouTube description. And once there, you can pick from an in-store coupon or online pickup and delivery options. All right, Joe. We talked about this off the top, that the way a lot of Fire fans are feeling right now, this is normally a feeling, it's not an unusual feeling to Fire fans, but it's unusual that it comes in this early in the season. And so a lot of people are already throwing the word blame around, which again, it is early for that. Our friends at Mad and Red put up a tweet the other day that, I think this is recency bias, but when given the options of coaching, ownership, sporting staff, and players, it was heavily in the end of coaching, and I think there's reason for that. But I think the best way to go through this is just a kind of a quick top-down thing. When you look at Fire owner Joe Mansueto, a lot of fans are frustrated that Georg Heitz, the sporting director, is still here, and the buck on that ultimately stops with Mansueto. That's kind of the con column in a nutshell. The pro column in a nutshell is he's been willing to spend money. He's one of the MLS owners trying to push the league to loosen the roster rules, and he seems to genuinely care if the team is good. He seems to want the team to win. So while there are issues there, and there are maybe better situations at a couple other MLS clubs, I don't know if, despite their frustration, Fire fans would be willing to roll the dice on being handed a different random MLS owner instead of Mansueto.
No, there's a real value in someone who, I don't like talking about other people's money, but the value that you can afford to lose money on a sporting franchise, that's important. Seeing what they're doing with the facility on the west side for the training facility, these are business things that matter. So in terms of that stuff from ownership, I don't think it's fair to criticize. Loyalty about the wrong things and focusing on the wrong things is a real issue, because we heard it when our friend Megan O'Keefe, who's now in San Diego, was interviewing Mansueto on the Fire Network in the offseason. They said, it's great. Our academy's gotten great. Fire 2 made the playoffs on decision day. That's not something to brag about. But it doesn't focus on the first team. You can ignore everything else. And those are all great for business. They make sense on the bottom line. They make sense in your end of year statements when you're going to people and saying, oh, look at what we've done as a franchise. but the first team is what matters. And try to find a casual soccer fan to care about the Chicago Fire Academy or Chicago Fire 2. Not going to happen. If you want to bring in fans, which they still want to do, the casual fans, there were not a lot of people at the last home game. They need it. They need to start winning with the first team, and they need to do it in an exciting fashion. It can't be 1-0 terrible soccer. It can't be what I watch in the EFL. It needs to be something good, and they've got some of the talent now, and it's just why has seemingly nothing changed in a lot of ways.
Then, so you go down a level, and that gets to the supporting staff and Georg Heitz. I think we'd agree on this. Georg Heitz did not think he was going to keep his job. The candor with which he spoke, something we hadn't really seen from him before, the candor with which he spoke to media at the beginning of this season was super welcome and appreciated, because he basically broke down the rock and a hard place the team is stuck between from a roster standpoint. On the one hand, a lot of the bones, if the bones are good, then that's a good start. The bones of this roster are not good. And he knows that, fans know that, everybody's well aware of that. The past couple of years of roster decisions have put this team in a tough place. On the other hand, the roster decisions that were made this offseason, everybody, I think, pretty much agreed, were a definite net positive for the team. And if you've seen the play already of guys like Kuipers, Acosta, Aragoni, those three in particular, those are better players than the team had last year. And Heitz admitted that he knows he's made mistakes and he's still learning how to be the best sporting director he can be in MLS, which I think kind of says it all. Like, that is what it is, and I understand all of the frustration with Heitz and the decisions he's made, but I don't know how much there is to say at this point, given where the Fire are. Yeah,
at a certain point, I'm curious what his decision-making was. He's done great things with parts of the franchise. Again, he helped revive some of these things. He's made them relevant in on-paper circumstances. The Sports Business Journal about the Fire, journal article, if they want to write one about the Fire, will be glowing, because on paper, it all is there.
Everything, it's why it's such a weird disconnect, is because if you look at, since Mansueto bought the team, everything about this franchise has improved, except the first team playing the soccer on the field every weekend. It's literally the one thing that hasn't gotten any better. And so, again, then you're stuck in a place where we get to where everybody's fury currently is, and that's coaching. Pros, I've got good vibes. Frank's a Fire legend. Frank's a nice guy, really nice to interact with. He's emotionally invested in the club, cares really, really deeply about the success of this team. But caring does not win soccer games, unfortunately, because, we're only, 5-6 games in, and I think we've seen enough that it's much like last season. You cannot tell what the tactical plan is. You can't tell what the adjustments are, if any, in game. Players are viewed really rigidly. I'm going to shout out our friend Alex Calabrese, friend of the show, who asked, going into the Atlanta game, after Jonathan Dean had been okay in New England, but crossing with his left foot had proven to be an issue. Alex asked if it was possible that Callan Acosta would start at left back next game, and the response included the line, starting Acosta at left back would be like starting Xherdan Shaqiri at left back. Callan Acosta has started at left back for the U.S. men's national team. It's not his best position, but Callan Acosta has technically been an international left back. And so to me, that, and I know every coach is different, and some coaches like to keep things very close to their chest, but that to me just speaks to the rigidity and the fact that there's not going to be some big tactical shift. There's not going to be some big adjustment. This is who we think these players are, and this is what we're going with. And increasingly, Joe, to me, it's like watching a team just beat its head against a brick wall.
Yeah, it's at a certain point where I'm not sure what needs to be. When Ezra got fired last year, Ezra Hendrickson got fired, every player said, man, he's a really nice guy. It stinks. We needed a change. If hypothetically Frank were to move into a different role, he wouldn't get fired. If you were to move into a different role, it would be the same exact response. Because how do you not like him? Very sociable man, very kind. He genuinely cares about these people as people. And we're all happy to be there. But at a certain point, and I was telling you this before the show, how many times in pressers have we just had Mansueto's name brought up unsolicited, that ownership's great? And that is a thing for Klopas. He's been around long enough to see that, yes, ownership matters. But I think when he came into the last offseason unsure that he wanted to be the coach, that should have been the Fire's opportunity to say, all right, perfect, club ambassador.
It was an out. Klopas gave the team a golden opportunity to say, hey, I want to be part of this project. Maybe I'm not the right guy to have this specific job in this project. Instead, Frank is here. We will just keep Frank. And if anybody who follows MLS media closely, when that decision was made, the collective eye roll it got, and again, that's nothing on Frank. We've got these dominoes. It's like, it's not Frank Klopas' fault that Georg Heitz kept him. It's not Georg Heitz's fault that Joe Mansueto didn't fire him. And it's like, and it's not, and then the question is, how much do you expect from a soccer knowledge and, soccer sensibility from ownership? Do you expect that to even be a thing? So it's this very circular logic thing, but we are going to debut this graphic. This is the Frank Klopas seat warmer. I feel a little bad. It's not Frank's fault, but I think, if you're in your car, I'll explain this for those of you who aren't watching on YouTube. If you're in your car, your seat warmer has 3 settings.
If you have a seat warmer, some people don't spring for upgrades. I get it. We got bills to pay.
I was fortunate to, my car is almost 10 years old, and somehow I was able to get one at the time, and I'm thankful as a Chicagoan every day. So the seat warmer is on. You can only barely feel it, but it's letting you know it's there because, while I don't think we honestly believe Frank Klopas is going anywhere anytime soon, at some point, the soccer has to matter. At some point, again, I don't mean this to be a knock on Frank. You made the point with Ezra. The same thing could be said about Rafael Vicky. Generally speaking, no one had anything but glowing, wonderful things to say about all these men as people. And I think that still holds generally true to this day about all those guys. It's just at some point, the soccer has to matter. And I struggle to think that the team could be any less the sum of its parts than it is right now. You've added several players everyone agrees are upgrades. The team is no better. I know this is maybe even a little short-termism of me as well to say, do you look at coaching? I think you look at coaching because it's a thing that's changeable.
It's a thing that's changeable, and you're getting to the point now where what are you going to sell people in the June transfer window in the summer? What are you selling as a vision? And if the vision is we love our coach because of his loyalty to the franchise, when you look at the results and they're meh, I wouldn't want to come here unless you're going to grossly overpay me, especially if it forces me to go on a different calendar and you're not an American who doesn't mind the MLS calendar. It's going to make this team so much harder to sell as a vision in the summer if they don't turn something around.
And that's why getting Kuipers in was such an impressive transfer, because on paper it's like, man, how did the Fire get this guy? It's like, you stay. If he's good, get the guy in who could score the goals, and maybe you do need to overpay when you're as desperate for a striker. Speaking of players, we got to move on, but I'll just mention this briefly. Herbers has looked real good in moments. He's looked at least very hungry. As we've said several times, Ugo Kuipers, when he gets the chance, looks good. It's that he just doesn't get enough of them, but this is already bad body language FC 2 months into the season. I mean, Shaqiri, Guti's the one who's, I think, been the disappointment, because we saw in the first couple of weeks there were sparks, and it seems like already he's kind of into that Shaqiri body language malaise, the Mesut Ozil body language without the Mesut Ozil production that justifies it. Mean. And I really want Guti to be so good, and I know he's got the capability of it. It's just, man, it's, we've got guys who are playing for the reserves, and that's not good for morale. The Open Cup roster merry-go-round isn't good for morale. It's like, on the one hand, again, if you want the soccer to be better, some of that's on the players. But on the other hand, you can understand how you could be a player in that locker room right now and not feeling your best.
No, I would completely understand that. And at a certain point, with Brian especially, let's go back to the Justin Fields example in Chicago. Was it a Justin Fields thing or was it a coaching thing? Can you take them to the next step? And Brian's shown, hey, both. At 19, 20.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. PTSD. But Brian has showed us what that talent is and what talent he has. Now it needs to be someone to tell him how to apply that. And sometimes that can't come from a nice guy. And we've seen this in soccer. Sometimes it needs to strictly be results-oriented. And I don't think starting him 60 minutes and then taking him out every game is particularly helpful if he's not performing at the level you want. Put him on the bench for a game. He's 20. He can handle that, and let's see if it brings some productive energy. But at a certain point, you can't have his confidence go down the way it might be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we go back to the discussion about him getting that yellow for simulation. If the team, especially, this is easy to say, if the team isn't going to be a winning team and, put Guti in his best role in that 10 position, ask him to try shit. Like, even if it doesn't work, like, what's currently being done is not working.
No.
And I think everybody, especially anybody who's a keen enough soccer observer, if the Fire were trying things, even if it was a little individualistic, they'd love to see Guti try things. They'd love to see Shaq try things. They want to see Chris Mueller try things. Just, especially though a player like Gutierrez, who, as somebody points out in the comments, you worry if a team that loses a lot is hindering him in terms of his development as a soccer player. You want him to have every opportunity to succeed, to try things, to showcase his skills, because in the longer run, if Guti develops into a very good international caliber player, rising tide all boat situation. That's good for money, that's good for everybody, good for reputation, good for Guti. On and on and on we go. That's a good thing. So it's, again, next game's at home, Saturday night. It's a chance for those players, it's a chance for Klopas to make a point that, hey, yeah, that Atlanta game, that sucked.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're moving on. We're going to rise above it, and we are going to play confidently and not worry about what's in the rear view.
Yeah, Houston's a real thorn in everyone's side. You see Peanut Tillman's going to be there as one of the people for Chicago Sports Day. It was the usual, Ron Kittle, Kendall Gill, the usual suspects. Peanut Tillman on there.
Peanut Tillman may be breaking a giant fire alarm, maybe?
Could he do it with his fist? Peanut punch the fire alarm? Oh my God, fire marketing. I might be emailing you after this.
Yeah.
We need to do this.
Yeah. Or, fire marketing, if you're watching this, just free idea, get him a boxing glove, maybe just for insurance.
The Hulk smash green. Oh, come on. This is right there.
Yeah, to get one of those Hulk fists, paint it red. Again, you guys know what you're doing. You're good at your jobs.
Yes,
but if you hadn't had the idea already, you are welcome. We do have one thing we still have to get to today, and that is the Open Cup. There's a game tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
But first, a word from Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and they are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers, not you against some giant pool of people and thousands of players, and you're betting against bots and sharks, and you got to outperform all of those people. No. You pick more or less than any stat that Prize Picks lists on 2 to 6 players, and then watch the winnings roll in. March might be over. It's the calendar turns to April, but this is the biggest time of year for college basketball. We are down to the Final Fours coming up this weekend, and that can be a good opportunity for you with Prize Picks, where you can be part of all the action for both men's and women's college basketball. And you used Prize Picks yesterday and took more on Caitlin Clark's three-pointers. Congratulations to
Iowa.
You. Congratulations to you. We got a Kansan saying go Iowa. Is this a regional thing?
I don't want to talk about Kansas.
Fair enough. Moving on. Prize Picks, though, it's not just college basketball. They've got something for every sports fan. Basketball, hockey, League of Legends. If you like esports, Prize Picks is in on esports. Everything in between. LeBron, Caitlin Clark, Connor McDavid. Heck, soccer as well. Jude Bellingham could be somebody you incorporate. Kylian Mbappe. Champions League knockouts are heating back up again here soon. There are Premier League games actively going on right now that you could be getting in on the daily fantasy sports action with Prize Picks. We around here at CHGO love Prize Picks, and it's really gotten us back into daily fantasy in a way we kind of hadn't been before for a while after that was kind of the hot thing a couple of years ago. So go to prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Also, a word for, all the great stuff going around here at CHGO. As CHGO Bears host Nick Moriano reminded me on my way in, we are just 23 days, ladies and gentlemen, from a historic NFL draft, and you can spend that day and that weekend with the CHGO Bears crew. Join the guys and former Bear Corey Wooten and other diehards for a special CHGO Bears live show during the NFL draft. It'll be at Joe's on Weed Street, Thursday, April 25th, and Friday the 26th, all presented by Circa Sportsbook and Casa Azul. On Friday, there's going to be a special guest appearance from Gary Fensick and our friends at the Collector's Cave, offering tickets for autographed pictures and jerseys. Lots of stuff going on. CHGO will be giving away merch, free Die Hard memberships, gift cards, and a whole lot more. So for all of that, you can head to our events page at allchgo.com for tickets. This is selling fast. It's going to be a big deal. Be there as the Bears pick number 1 overall on Thursday and then keep the festivities going on Friday. You'll also see on the events page at allchgo.com that you can learn more about our free Cubs Friday 120 Club, as well as the Cubs and Sox takeovers, golf tournaments, more. Lots of fun stuff coming up this summer. It's going to be a busy time, not only in Chicago sports, but at CHGO, of course, always with the normal lineup of podcasts, live shows, every team, content every day, post-game shows, premium written content for all members at allchgo.com. You get 20% off when you sign up for all these events if you're a diehard. Don't merch for all teams. We got an update today that Chicago collection merch is going to be on its way soon. Thank you for your patience. You get a free shirt when you become a member, and you can join the Discord, our members-only CHGO lounge. We've got pages dedicated to every team individually. If you want to talk Fire, if you want to talk Red Stars, if you want to just talk soccer in general, I love the Soccer Diehards channel, which mixes people together from all over the CHGO Diehard community. We've got one guy who's a very dedicated Newcastle United fan in there, so shout out to him for his patronage, but Joe and I might not exactly want Newcastle to win the games they play, but that is another discussion for another time. Speaking of soccer games being played tomorrow night, SeatGeek Stadium, 7 p.m., the U.S. Open Cup, Chicago Fire 1.5 host Forward Madison. How do these teams get there? Well, the Fire beat Chicago City 6-0 in a nice outing for some teenagers in particular. Madison fought hard against a Duluth FC team who came down to Breese Stevens Field in Madison, put up a nice fight, but in the end, it was the pro team who came out on top. We saw 3 Fire first-team players play the first half last time, and that was it. The eligibility list has grown today. For tomorrow's game, in terms of the players who have a chance to maybe participate. Joe, I think as much as Fire fans would want to see a full first-team 11 or a lot of first-team players, I'm thinking maybe it'll be more than 45 minutes, but 3 to 4 guys does seem kind of like what we should expect.
This is a game where you're going to have to start the adults, just because Forward Madison has grown people on their team who are professional athletes, unlike what was with Chicago City. So if Wyatt Omsberg's healthy, I'd expect him to be there. I'd expect Arnaud Souquet to be involved in this game, which is actually really interesting because he played really well with Christian Kofi in the last CF2 game, but that's for the sickos to focus on for a different day. But
we appreciate you.
Yeah, there's a lot of good players, and we texted about this last night. There will be everyone on the bench should the floodgates open. But if it stays close, you're going to likely see maybe the Sergio Orhels get some minutes, maybe 30, 40 minutes, as opposed to the Dylan Borsos, just because the age and experience, the size matters in these games, and experience matters because it's going to be disgusting out there tomorrow. I'm not excited to have to sit outside.
High 30s and rain. Get excited.
In the wind, it's just going to be dreadful. So don't talk to me if you see me there. I'm going to be in a bad mood. But it's going to be a game where as long as CF2 doesn't make a mistake, they'll be fine. If they do, oh boy.
And it could get messy in all sorts of ways. Madison so far this season has played 3 league games in USL League One. They have 1 win and 2 draws in those games. And fans may remember that last year they were eliminated by Chicago House in a game that the winner would go on to play the Fire. And Chicago House, in dramatic fashion, equalized at the end of regular time, took the lead in extra time, and won in a 120-minute contest. So good to see the local rivalries. Madison, obviously, with a lot of Chicago connections. Oh, yeah. Another roster note, Amari Glasgow should be on the roster for tomorrow. He was not there 2 weeks ago because he was, for some reason, playing in international friendly in Saudi Arabia.
FIFA Plus, baby. FIFA Plus. They need the content.
Yeah, because Guyana really needs to be playing, what was it, Indonesia in Riyadh?
They played Cambodia
in Riyadh.
What was the other one? It was also random, just on geography. Give me a
So, hey, shout out to Omari, because at least he's getting his frequent flyer miles in, but he should be available tomorrow for that game.
Cape Verde.
Oh, yeah, there we go. That's what we need.
Gave up a second-minute goal at nothing. What a terrible game.
You watch that?
No. I'm crazy. I'm not nuts like that.
I was going to say, yeah, we are sickos ourselves, but friendly at like 10 a.m. in Saudi Arabia featuring a Fire 2 player is a little too much.
No, and Amari was telling me, I chatted with him about it, and everything was happening at night because it was during Ramadan in Jeddah. So he was sleeping during the days because there was nothing you could do. I asked him, so what did you, if you had to get a Gatorade or something? He's like, no, I slept through that so I wouldn't have to, deal with the difficulties. Like everything was alive and well. So a very fun trip for him, and scored 2 goals. He scored a header on a cross, which he's shorter than me. Like that surprised me. Just anytime a short guy scores like that, awesome. But yeah, Amari Glasgow, one of the franchise's real good things.
So again, something to keep an eye on tomorrow night. Maybe you don't want to go watch that game in person because the weather is going to be crap, but you can watch it on the MLS League website. It will be on MLSsoccer.com and will be streamed there. Again, Fire back home, the first team this Saturday, 7:30 p.m., Soldier Field. Meanwhile, a quick note that in the Red Stars universe, they are off this week because of national team considerations. Mallory Swanson back in the national team squad. Alyssa Nair is, of course, there as well. So might get a chance to see Mal in a U.S. shirt for the first time in almost exactly a year. It was this window last year against Ireland where she ruptured her patella tendon in her left knee. And so it's been a long, long road back. She scored her first goal this past week. That was super exciting. So keep an eye out for Mal. They're back home, I believe, a week from Saturday. For some reason, playing a game that starts at 8:45 local time. Yay, more money for women's sports TV deals. Boo when they favor the LA market because they are playing Angel City and putting that game at almost 9 p.m. local time here in Chicago. Joe, I, and others have a bone to pick with you about that. But anyway, U.S. Women's National Team, Chicago Fire, lots of home games. Baseball season's underway. It's summer in Chicago, Joe. The weather has to get better soon.
It won't.
Fun times. Well, thank you for ending on a very optimistic note, as I say thank you again for spending 45 to an hour with me in this room.
Love it. Always a pleasure. Go Fire. Do me a favor, people. I'm going to have an article on Chris Brady's last international break, so click on it, please.
Speaking of good things for the Chicago Fire, are guys wearing some red, white, and blue, maybe in Paris this summer. That is going to do it for this episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast. Shout out to Sarah, who is behind the screen today on the ones and twos. Thank you for your help. Shout out to my co-host for today, Joe Chatz. I'm Alex Campbell. We'll be back with you in 2 weeks, a soccer podcast doubleheader day in 2 weeks here at CHGO. But for now, I'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.